like we just said, I've been working across cognitive neuroscience and machine learning for a long time now. There's a lot of excitement around the promise and perils of AI and what it's capable of. But I am not really interested in AGI or a separate intelligence. I'm very much on team human. So my work and my goal is to say, how can we enhance human intelligence using machine learning, using some of these sensors and these data that we can bring in. Interestingly, a lot of the machine learning work is loosely based on neuroscience and how the human mind works. But the goal is really, for AI, is to create something like a human. But where we are today is mostly because of scale and compute and all of this digitized information that machine learning models now have access to that allows them to learn something about the world we live in. But they also can learn something about individuals and people. And some of these models, and I worked on some of this earlier in my transition out of academia, but some of these models are really focused on understanding what is important to humans. What are they attending to, what's important to them, and giving them all of this wonderful digitized content. So if you're, like me, excited about enhancing human intelligence, giving people access to all this knowledge is a huge gift. But it has come with a cost at this point, so people are feeling overwhelmed. I can't really deal with all of this information. And I would take a stronger stance there and say our minds actually can't deal with anything digital. We didn't evolve for it. We evolved in a space where, everything was slower and we couldn't have hidden images and things. Nothing like this could be created that was real. We can't really reason even about people across time and space that don't exist in front of us. So we were already at a disadvantage, and that has gotten worse over time. But I think that a lot of the ways that we are sort of in our pre-digital world, we evolved a specific mind and brain to deal with that world. And these are the places that we're most vulnerable now in a post-digital world. So even before we had computers and all of these iPhones and things, all of the information I'm saying right now, all of the auditory, all the visual information is too much for your mind to process. We use attention to whittle that down to something that's useful to us based on what we're doing. And what we attend to is a pretty good indicator of what we'll remember later. But our memory is also capacity limited. So we have a system that richly connects information for us and makes it useful in that moment to what we're attending to. And we're also really limited in our cognitive load. So we can't deal with a lot of information in our head at once. So all of these things, we've come up with these wonderful mechanisms as humans to get around those, to be able to just interact and see me and hear me and all of these wonderful things. But instead of exploiting those, I think we can then look at those as places where we can start to build enhancements on top of. And so I'm solving this problem right now, and lots of other people, I think, are focusing on some of these pieces. But how could we close a loop between humans and machines and start to augment them based on these pieces? So a lot of the fundamental aspects of that are already here today, which is incredibly exciting. So we already have machine learning models that would let us take, again, all of this digitized information and start to connect it in a more personalized way. I gave the example of advertising models as an ill for that, but we can use that as a way to connect someone's personal information for them. We have sensing data from a lot of the people here that are building these wearables that give us more insight into the individual and their current state, what's going on with them. And more recently, we can start to generate people's experiences. So we've had virtual worlds, we've had the internet, we've had computers for a long time now, it seems. But I think we're crossing a threshold, I'm running out of time, where we're able to now say, in an adaptive sense, can I generate this world for you? Can I help you with this cognitive load issue in a way that's very specific to you? So more concretely, what we can do now is take all of the stuff that we're exposed to, so this sort of environmental context here would be things like sound in the environment, things that are going on for you. We can take what you're consuming, so things that you read, YouTube videos that you're watching, things like that. We can start to connect that with the machine learning models in a way that more closely approximates the way human memory and human attention actually work. So that rich connectedness that I talked about, we can start to put that together. And we can also start to, and I'm doing this now, bringing in behavioral signals is what I call them for attention here. So how do you interact with the world? How do I get an idea of what's important to you? That becomes much richer if we can bring in signals from biometric data that get more about your state, But those can be put into sort of this, you can think of it as like an externalized knowledge for the individual. And all of that can help to augment their thinking, can help to build these environments for them when they're doing any kind of knowledge work. So instead of sort of first step here, we want to reduce the amount of information overload, we can use something like this to know, okay, this is what's important to this individual, here's what they're seeing in this contextual environment. How do we give them a different level of information that's less overloading? How do we help them to sort of take ownership of this invisible process of their attention and focus on the things that would be meaningful to them then? And then foundation models or large language models or the sort of current era of AI right now, we can start to take advantage of that as well. So that is where I feel like things go beyond sort of plugging these evolutionary holes, as you will, to augmenting their thinking in different ways and sort of taking the machine intelligence that we have and being able to hook that up to something more meaningfully related to the individual level. And so I'm excited to talk to people at the breakout about this. But for me, I've really been working on laying this foundation of taking these principles of doing the machine learning work in a slightly different way, taking these principles of human attention and memory into account. And the next steps here are really thinking about, okay, I have architected this in a way that you can integrate wearables. So like people thinking about the sensor data that they're collecting and the use cases for that, I think we're going to see shortly application layer uses for that are really, really interesting. And so I would love to talk to anybody that is working on these different aspects of the problem. I see them as sort of the getting the data in about the individual, the machine learning pieces, and then the generating of those environments, and focusing on how do we go from being overwhelmed, plugging these holes, to enhancing human intelligence. I think I'm good.